Well, today's Saturday morning, and I bet you're probably wondering what we're going to be working on today. And the answer to that is we're going to be TIG welding the stainless steel parts that we made for our turbo system. I've got it all tacked together right now, but we're going to put it all together, pull the turbo system off of the motor, and that way hopefully we'll get as little warpage as possible as we weld it up. We are going to be back purging the entire thing. I've got a small tank of argon with a little hose right here. Got all my tin foil to plug all the inlets and outlets. But the first thing we need to start doing is cutting out the hole for our merge for the wastegate dump, which is going to go just like that. So ordinarily what I would do would be to cut it out first with a hole saw, but I think it might be a little bit more efficient to just go at it with an angle grinder. One thing you want to, actually, we might want to weld it first just because it kind of cuts into where a weld goes. So maybe we'll weld this piece first and then we'll worry about cutting that hole out. So I'm gonna go ahead and disconnect the turbo system from the truck right now. That'll probably be pretty fun to watch because it weighs like over 100 pounds, so I'll set you up. Okay, so I'm gonna leave the two turbos attached because they're positioned exactly where I want them to be for how our pipe is tacked together. And we do have like a 2-inch spacer right here that I installed to give me a position to weld in the wastegate. I was gonna weld it onto the turbine housing or the manifold initially, but I did a lot of research, and from everything I found and my own experience as well, anything you try to weld the cast is probably gonna crack eventually because of the different expansion rates, especially with a part that goes through so much heat cycling like an exhaust manifold or a turbo housing. So that's what the spacer is for. And the spacer is also what makes removing this and installing it such a pain. But removing it's a lot easier than putting it on, I'll tell you that much. The turbo system over here, and basically we're just going to reinstall the transition pipe. Probably should install this too, which is the gasket for the T6 flange, so that we have all our proper spacings. This is basically what we've got here, and we're just gonna, the way we're gonna back purge it, just block this side off with tin foil, block the inlet of this turbo off with tin foil, and install the hose into, it's gonna be kind of complicated because you want to install it at the lowest point and let the gas fill up the pipe. So depending on how I position it, we'll figure that out in a minute. But all right, I've never done this before. The last stainless manifold I welded was for my Scriata, and I didn't back purge that, and it cracked probably, I don't know, in excess of 6 times now in different locations. I was able to fix it and it hasn't cracked again, but I did learn my lesson. So what I've got here is a piece of tin foil that I folded in half. I'm gonna fold it in half again, and we're just gonna wrap it around this flange right here, really good, so that the gases won't escape. I've decided this is gonna be our high point, because I want to weld at least around the T6 flange first, because that's where the most argon could probably escape from. So it's important to also put a pinhole in the top side so that the oxygen can get pushed out. The outlet of the larger turbo, I just took a bunch of tinfoil and kind of wadded it up around this piece of stainless steel 1/4-inch tubing that I have, which the rubber hose will slide onto just like that. And this will basically insert into there like that. I left it a little fat so that I could seal everything well. Looks pretty good. We just have to connect our hose. And oh shoot, it's getting kind of loose around there. That seems pretty good. And now what we have to do is poke a hole in this tinfoil on the other turbo so that the air has somewhere to escape. I got the regulator set to about 20 CFM, and we'll just let it run for, I'd say, 4 or 5 minutes. Hopefully that'll be enough to push out all the oxygen and regular air, so we'll get burning here in a minute. Alright, so it's been purging for about 5 minutes, and I think we're about ready. I hope we're about ready to start running some beads, because that's what we're gonna do. The plan is to just run little 1/4-inch bead and just keep moving throughout the joints. Run a 1/4-inch bead and then start over, a different location. That way, hopefully, we'll keep the heat to a minimum and the warpage to a minimum. Here we go. Alright, I've welded about as much as I can on the bottom side. So we're gonna go ahead and try and reorient this thing and see what we can come up with for getting a good position for the rest of this welding. Let's see what we come up with. So if I stick this big turbo and this too, there we go. Now I like this. A lot of access to the areas I missed, and not awkward at all. So we'll start running more beads. We're gonna have to figure out how we're gonna get to the inside of this T6 flange, but I ain't too worried about it. All right, it looks like it's time for another rotation here because we've pretty much run out of areas to weld comfortably. Basically, we've got to finish this, and there's a small section here, and the back side of the T6 flange. So I think what we're going to do is try and just rotate it this way. All right, that about wraps it up for this position as well. We managed to complete the V-band weld, and that one back there as well. Now we just got to worry about the flange for the T6, and we're gonna go ahead and reposition now, see what we can come up with. Now we're down to the hardest part, because it has the least access. Oh boy. Got some access right here. I think we'll go ahead and try and run some beads, see what we can do. Alright, you can kind of see the areas that we need to do still very tight. We're gonna give it a shot. This is just the initial first pass. I was gonna go over it with the second one to kind of fill it out. See what we can do. All right, I managed to make it all the way around the flange without having to disconnect it, and I even got my second pass in there. We're looking pretty good. I'm ready to take it apart and see if we got that full penetration we were after. Keep your fingers crossed. I know I am. Well, unfortunately, we did not get full penetration. I guess I ran it a little bit too cold, but there are a few spots where it burned through and it didn't create oxidation. So at least I know that our back purge process worked the way it was supposed to. But yeah, I don't know if it's gonna crack or not. I guess we'll find out eventually. Now we can go ahead and move on to getting this cut out for our wastegate, and hopefully we'll finish this up and move on to the next step. Okay, so what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna take my angle grinder, I'm gonna cut a line straight across here, a line straight across here, and then I'll just start cutting out the pie pieces. We're gonna cut well inside of the Sharpie line because, you know, when you trace out around a piece, obviously the line is a bit further out than you want, so. All right, now I'm just gonna remove the pieces that I notched out. And we'll probably go at it with a die grinder for a while to get these other pieces. Actually, we might be able to make some small cuts with the cutoff wheel and remove more material before we switch over to the die grinder. All right. Cut a bunch more notches in it, and I made them thin enough to where I could just kind of rip these pieces out, and then we'll clean it up with the die grinder. Anyways, I need 2 hands for this. All right, there is our merge. So we're gonna reinstall this back onto the turbo system, and then we're gonna position the wastegate and burn it in. All right, 5 hours later, here we are. Everything's completely welded out, and we're about ready to reassemble this on the motor again. Turn the heat up a little bit when I ran this wastegate dump, and I got full pen. I can only see a little bit of it, but pretty happy with that. Had a little bit of contamination right there, but no big deal. Let's get this reinstalled on the motor and see what we're working with. All right, we got it to bolt back up without much issue. Fitment was pretty perfect, so I'm gonna go ahead and set you guys up to watch me try and reinstall this thing, because it is challenging to say the least. Oh God, this is part of what makes it so challenging. This flange for the wastegate. Have to make sure it stays on here while we're trying to slide the turbos on, and yeah, it's just not fun. Here we go. Okay, so what I'm gonna do here, to Gonna try and get these bolts to thread into the manifold first, and hopefully we don't have a ton of trouble with that. But I usually do. Okay. Then let's start with one bolt. Here we go. Come on, baby. Oh no. Oh, okay. Now, I bet you're probably wondering why I don't just put the small turbo on first. And, you know, that's a good question. Because that's probably what I should be doing. But I like to do stuff the hard way. Okay. Yeah. Shit. Got it. No. Man, that was fun. Not. There you have it. Looking mighty fine, if I do say so myself. All right, now that the turbo system's done, the next move is going to be setting the body back on and start cutting up that cowl a little bit, because the turbo system interferes with it a little. But it's not a big deal. We're going to go ahead and smooth out the entire firewall anyways. And we got to make a transmission tunnel too, but not tripping.